Hi, good morning. And thank you for showing up again and again. And that's wonderful. And yesterday we talked about maybe systemic trauma. We're going to continue a little bit talking about the trauma caused by the system. But also we try to focus today on chapter number 4, which is taking care of ourselves and looking within and nursing our own wounds. And just understanding that everybody here is a wounded healer. And you continue healing others despite your own wounds. But you need to find the balance. Because if you continue to do that, you might end up in burnout and become unavailable for everybody around you. We talked about how some systems can be extremely violent, can be hateful, and sometimes we, just forget that we need to see God's face in every face and do that through action, not only through words. We talked about how traumatized children, they miss out on their childhood, and that includes us. Many of us are adult survivors of childhood trauma, so we need to revisit our own trauma and make sure that we don't repeat the cycle for the sake of our children. If you come across somebody that you are not familiar with because of their background, religion, culture, orientation, whatever it is, just try to be humble and be aware of your own blind spots. Try to step outside your ego, commit to self-reflection, self-critique, work on fixing any power imbalance. And all of us, we have some kind of privilege. The privilege can be your gender, can be your age, can be your physical or mental ability, can be your orientation, can be your religion, and so on. And then try to develop partnerships with the marginalized people in the community, in the workplace, and so on. And it's okay to receive. Many of us, we don't feel comfortable receiving. We love to give others. If you continue to give without receiving, you will run out of gas. And when you run out of gas, your car will break down, and it's not good for anyone. So actually not giving people a chance to give is almost an arrogant approach. People also deserve to give you. So if you want to be humble and you continue to give others from time to time, just accept receiving love, affection, support from your loved ones and also from your co-workers. There are a few things also about chapter 3 before I jump into chapter 4. Sometimes when we see injustice in the system, because injustice makes us sick physically, mentally, morally, and also socially, we can do a number of things. So I can use the CUS, which means CUS stands for I am feeling concerned with the behavior that I'm witnessing or the language that I'm hearing. So the C stands for concern. The U stands for uncomfortable. This is making me uncomfortable. And the S for I want this to stop immediately. So you do that when you see a behavior that's inappropriate, but also you do it with your own self, cussing your own self by saying, wow, I am concerned about my own needs and how much I'm abusing my boundaries. And this makes me very uncomfortable because it's affecting the way that I show up authentically to take care of others. And I'm going to stop that cycle and I'm going to take care of myself. So that's one approach. Another approach is actually contained in this brochure that I'm very excited that it came together on time. Thank you to the logistics team. I really appreciate you guys. So the last page talk about value yourself by recognizing how important you are to the system. You are the foundation of the system, so recognize your worth and also rethink how important the job that you are doing here. The second thing is to value your needs by verbalizing them. So if you have needs or boundaries, make sure that they are very loud and clear in a respectful way are heard. And the last thing is prioritizing your own wellness by taking care of yourself. Okay, practicing lots of self-care. And yesterday we talked about taking care of people from different backgrounds and standing up for justice. Taking care of your mental health means you have boundaries that you need to respect, and others need to respect them too. And just fight for everything that you need. So there is the well-being spectrum or continuum. So on one side there is somebody who is thriving. On the other side there's somebody who's completely burnt out. Most of us are in the middle, which is maybe barely surviving, or we are doing okay. But you have the right to thrive within the Adventist system, and everywhere you are. You have a full potential that you have the right to realize. And that will be beautiful if everybody is given the chance to reach their full potential, if we actually care about people and giving them opportunities to thrive. And thriving can mean different things. Like for me, when I was in my psychiatry residency in Memphis, Tennessee, I told my program director, and I told you his story yesterday. I mean, this is a guy who went out of his job description to actually contact immigration and tell them they have to expedite my green card and making me a citizen of the country. Because when I came here, I came after September 11, and I was placed on the no-fly list because of my background as a Muslim and Arab. It was a little ugly in the year 2002, 2003. But when Dr. Allen intervened and he talked to immigration, they gave me my citizenship. But he also did something else. When I told him, I'm very interested in global psychiatry, taking care of refugees and responding to disasters, he said, that's not something I can do, but I will give you the time off, and I will give you the educational money to actually go and take care of yourself through conferences and through training. So that's a way to make somebody thrive, by giving them opportunities. Show up to others, but also within reason and without guilt. And understand that there are more needs than what you can provide. So do your best, and then go home and take care of your family, take care of yourself, and go to sleep. You cannot take your patients with you to your nightmares, and it's not fair to you or those around you. Most of our challenges we talked about yesterday are not clinical. Usually we enjoy the relationship with our patients. Most of these are bureaucratic, just problems with the system, heavy caseload, not enough time, electronic medical chart, and so on. So the first interactive activity I like to do with you, and this is available online, it's also included in the book. And the good news I heard today, we have enough copies of the book to give to everyone without you going through the raffle system. So everybody gets the brochure, gets the book, and these some tools you can put in your toolkit. So, I think State Farm, they say, what's in your wallet? So what's in your toolkit? I have the Wounded Healer book, I have a brochure, and I am going to really commit to self-care, taking care of me, my family, my community, and so on. So let us practice the right side of the picture, which is the human and the tree. When it comes to you, what represents your roots? What grounds you to your surrounding? What functions as an anchor for you? And this is a picture we came up with, me and my children, and we said our two roots are faith and family. Both are important to us. But how about you? What represents your roots? What's the foundation of your house? Family too? Okay. Yeah, many people, they say family, and definition of family can be different for different people. That's okay. It can be your friends, co-workers, your team members, and so on. How about your core? What represents your trunk or the walls of the house? For us, it was our moral values, our ethics that usually come from our faith and our family. But what about you? What's your core? Your identity, maybe? Your self-value? And what branches or fruits you can think of? For us, again, they came up with two things that we produce: acts of service towards others and acts of self-care towards oneself. But what about you? What are some of the things that you produce, or the fruits that you are very proud of? It doesn't have to be your job. Your job can be one. We are very proud of the work that we do. It gives us satisfaction. But your job is not everything about you. You are more than your job. Okay, so find meaning and find self-value outside your job description. When we go to the other side and talk about the house, we're going to talk about exposure, which is trauma that happens to our homes. We're going to talk about protection, what protects us from that trauma, and also nurture, what will continue to make us thrive as a family despite our trauma. So I gave lots about my trauma yesterday and also included in the book. One significant trauma that affected me is I was forced to leave my home country. So I lived as an asylum seeker, and I was not a refugee, but I was an asylum seeker for about 2 years in the United Kingdom before meeting my wife and flying to Colorado because she was Libyan American. So I came to this country as a fiancé and not as a refugee. But that gave me the passion to work with the refugees. If you feel comfortable, any trauma that happened to your family, could be the global pandemic, death of loved one, domestic violence, divorce, whatever it is. If you don't feel comfortable sharing, that's okay too. So remember, maybe there is trauma that happens to your household. What protected you from that trauma? How did you manage or survive or cope with the worst time in your family's life? For my family, when that happened, we became closer together. So I called my family more frequently, even though we are thousands of miles away. What gives you some protection from trauma when trauma happens to you? Anything?
Toughening your skin. Toughening your skin.
Okay.
Withdrawing into yourself, becoming arrogant, believing yourself to be better than others as a defense mechanism.
Okay, I mean, as we said, people cope in different ways. As long as it's healthy and safe, we would encourage it. If you shut down or lash out, sometimes that might lead to more trauma and people might alienate you. And many of us, we actually, as caregivers, we don't like talking. So we go to a cave and, retreat into our cave and say, nobody follow me into that cave. I'm going to come out when I feel like it. And that approach is okay to a certain extent because many of our colleagues, they went to the cave and they never came out. They ended up dying by suicide. And that's why I told you, be supportive, not intrusive, but also not neglectful. Okay? What gives you nurture? What nurtures you, keeps you thriving as a family, even though there was trauma in the background? Maybe it's your faith, maybe it's your values. Whatever works for you, continue to nurture and the love and the healing, especially with the small children that you have. Okay, make sure that you look for beauty in every encounter. My supervisor, Dr. Richard Molika, he's the head of the Harvard program, Refugee Trauma program. He graduated from 2006. He said, Omar, if you are not looking for beauty in every encounter with your patients, then you are not practicing medicine. Go and look for another job. So looking for beauty even when the patient is hostile or agitated, is something we continue to do as safely as possible, of course. So continue to recognize your needs, listen to your inner voice, verbalize them, express your boundaries, prioritize your self-care. And to practice some of these tools. 5R stands for, and all of these are in the book. So the first thing, recognize that you need a break. The second thing, request a break or demand one. The third one is relax during your break. Many of us, we don't really take care of ourselves during the break. We might do more work during our break. Number 4, realize how much is on your plate and maybe try to minimize or downsize or prioritize the things that maybe have unrealistic expectations of yourself and so on. And the last one, you're going to re-engage more refreshed and re-centered and be more authentic when you engage with your clients and your loved ones, and your co-workers. The 4D has to do with when you are overwhelmed with something. Maybe you have a long list of things you have to do. Do 4 things. If this is something you can do immediately, then do it. And this is check out, get it out of your way. If this is something you can delay, then delay it. Something you can use the help of others, delegate it. And if something that's out of your control, doesn't have to be needed, then completely ditch it. You don't have to do it. So do it, and delegate it, delay it, or ditch it. And then the 3A is something that we can use to improve our family dynamics, or even the relationship that we have with our co-workers, our community members. So if you are feeling out of charge, use the AAA battery approach. So the first A stands for appreciation. So you notice people, so you pay attention, and then you show appreciation, and then you end up expressing affection. So I notice everything happening in my household or in my department, the small things that happen. I pay attention, then I express appreciation, and eventually affection will come as an outcome of that safe relationship. All the projects that I do are under one name, that's Untangled, which is something I created in 2011 because I have seen many individuals, families, and communities are tangled in the web of trauma. So how do we break the cycle? We do it through a number of things, 5 main components that we have actually done this week with you guys. One is education. The second thing is training. The third is creating safe spaces. The fourth is resources that are appropriate for the culture. And the last one is actual clinical services for those who might need them. So that might look something like this, working with the DHS, Children Protective Services, or going to a refugee camp and working with the parents. Could be something like this, working on strengthening the family bond. And this was a marriage seminar, and usually we give attractive names to these workshops so people can come. If I call it, this is a psychosocial network, workshop, nobody will come, yeah? So you can call it maybe Out of the Shadows or 13 Reasons Why. This one we called it Will You Remarry Me? And this actually, when I finished the workshop, I re-proposed to my wife. And she said, I have to think about this one. Taking children or youth empowerment retreats and camps and trauma-informed activities for the children, something that I really deeply love. You can see some of the play and art therapy activities for the children in Bangladesh who are running from the genocide in Burma. And building some services, maybe a hotline, maybe a clinic, and so on. And some of the books that, the chapters that I wrote about fighting hate, speaking up for people from different religions, not buying into the message of extremism. Untangled is a book that's available for you for free. If you want, I can send you an electronic copy. It is self-published, so I have the luxury of giving it for free. The Wounded Healer is not self-published, but thankfully Adventist, they got a copy for all of you, so that's wonderful. You don't have to go to a refugee camp or war zone to provide healing. You can actually look at your own backyard. There is lots of trauma in your community, in your place of employment, in your own home. So think globally, but act locally. I told you about the daughter-father bonding project. It's a YouTube channel that me and my 3 beautiful daughters, we created together to strengthen the family bonds between fathers and their teenage children. I have 3 teenagers, so wish me luck. But it has been really a very wonderful experience to have them. The Wounded Healers, the book that we have talked about this week. And these are the 4 things that kept me going and kept me sane during all of my PTSD. Leaning on my faith, loving my family, practicing gratitude, and engaging in acts of service. And when you are burned out, you might look exactly like this. You have no feelings. You are are like a machine, like a zombie. You're running out of energy. And some of the Disney movies that I found very effective as maybe toolkits for you. This one is a Tinkerbell movie. Very few people have seen this before. If you know the name of this one, maybe we can give you an extra book. Anybody have watched this one? If you haven't, do it this week, maybe this weekend. This is called the Never Beast. The Never Beast, his name is Gruff. He was really taking care of everything in the village, and he was completely burned out. And Tinkerbell and her group, they have to remind him of self-care, and he went on hibernation to take care of himself. So we don't want you to completely burn out and end up in hibernation. People have to remind you that you are no longer useful for your family or for your job. We want you to have this as a proactive, as much self-care as possible. Think about your body, what makes your body sink and sing. We talked about Nemo, one of my favorite movies, and how the trauma in a family context can make parents overprotective, or they can repeat the cycle of abuse. Think about your mind, what makes your mind sink and sing. We have talked about trauma in a family system. These are two of the most recent wonderful Disney and Pixar movies. Have you guys seen both of them? Oh, these are very highly recommended. If you haven't seen Encanto, I mean, it's just wonderful. I mean, it will touch your soul and make your soul sing, not sink. So think about your heart, what makes your heart sink and sing. And eventually, this is inside out. It just reminds us as caregivers, we need to listen to our inner voice. We have needs, we have boundaries that we need to respect. So listen to your soul and see what makes your soul sink and sing. Do it for yourself, but also do it for the people that you love. I'm doing all of this, even though it's very emotionally exhausting work, because I want to honor the legacy of loved ones. My sister, who died of brain cancer, and she was a motivation of becoming a physician, even though I wanted to be a brain surgeon. But every time I go to the operating room, I faint. So after fainting 3 times, they told me, hey, Dr. Reda, you cannot operate on people when you are unconscious, so look for another branch of medicine. So I became an emergency room physician before I fell in love with psychiatry. My nephew died in 2014 when he was killed by ISIS. Extremist group was taking over my city, Benghazi. And then my mom, who died in 2016, she told me, Omar, you have to be a source of joy and delight, not source of pain and distress. She said, make people feel better, more than when you came to their life. So do this for you, but also do it for the people that you love. Practice self-care. Take care of yourself. You are the most valuable asset of this organization. Thank you.